Good evening, this is your teacher Arturo Tiznado, and today we're going to talk about basic motion elements of the method time measurement, basically MTM. So we have, when we're talking about MTM, we have some basic elements of method time measurement. They are as follows. First of all, we have reach, that it's represented with the letter R. Then we have move, which is represented with the letter M. We have turn, we have apply pressure, we have grasp, we have position, that's with the letter P, release, that it's with RL, disengage, eye times, and body length and foot motions. So the basic description of these elements are based on some MTM tables that basically provides the motion time data for all these elements. These tables are MTM applications for data tables. So the various or each element, it's performed under changing starting and ending conditions. Basically, it's a certain movement that's done in certain sections in order to comply with that movement, and that certain period of time that it takes to do a certain action. So those time values are basically measured in TMUs for each type and condition of motion. These are available on those tables. According to those conditions, the analyst is required to classify the motion and read off the appropriate time value from the table. Then you just add it up and it gives you the appropriate time for each of those actions. So first of all, we're going to talk about reach. Reach is the basic element used when the predominant purpose of the motion is to move the hand or fingers to a definitive destination or to a general location. So basically it's when we move our hands or fingers from point A to point B. And it has different situations, different conditions. The time for making reach varies with the following factors. First of all, the condition, the nature of the destination. Second of all, we have the length motion. And last but certainly not least, the type of reach. If the hands are moving, accelerating, decelerating at the beginning or end of a reach or not. Classes of reach. There are 5 classes of reach. The time to perform a reach is affected by the nature of the object towards which reach is made. There are 5 cases for this motion reach that we're gonna see right now. So case A of a reach is to reach an object in other hand to an object in a fixed location or on which other hand rests. For example, I have a movement from my left hand over to my right hand, or from my left hand over to the table. That's a certain point of reach. Case B, it says that reach to an object whose general location is known. Location may vary a little from cycle to cycle. For example, I have a bin, a specifically located bin that I'm going to reach forward to. Case C, reach to object jumbled with other objects in a group. Search and select may be involved in this case. For example, it's a bin that has a lot of different parts in which I'm gonna have to search and select a certain component. If they are tangled, for example, like for example a washer, a screw, etc. Case D says reach to a very small object or where accurate group is needed. If you need a certain point of concentration in order to get a certain object, that's when this reach applies. Then we have the case E, reach to an indefinite location to get hand into position for body balance or next move or out of way. For example, I'm sending it to a certain location where I know it's going to be taken from another position based on a certain balance, or just basically to get started with a different move on the other hand. The length of a motion is the true path, not just straight line distance between 2 terminal points. There are 3 different types of reach. to be taken into consideration. For example, number 1, hand is not moving at the beginning of at the end of reach. For example, if my hand's not gonna move, it's gonna stay still at the beginning and at the end of that reach. If my hand is moving at either the beginning or the end of that action of reaching. If my hand is in motion and in both beginning and or end of a reach. For example, if I'm gonna take an object and my hand's gonna take a certain angle, I'm gonna take it to another point and my hand's gonna end up in another different angle or position. Time values with respect to the reach type are available in the tables published by MTM Association for standard and research. The sample tables are the purpose of the illustration and are shown on the tables that we're going to see right now. So these are the tables right here. And as we can see, there's the distance that's going to be moved. These tables are in inches. So we can see each move, how long is it going to take. For example, if it goes from 3/4 or less to 1 inch, 2 inch, up to 30 inches. And any additional, well, is just basically contemplated depending on the type of reach. For example, we have the time at TMUs for the hand in motion. So we have for case A, case B, C or D, E. Those are the times that it takes in TMUs, which are added basically on the distance that it's being contemplated. And then we have if it's an additional inch, there's a proportion that's gonna be added that's on the bottom section. Where it says additional, it gives you for each additional inch, it gives you that amount of time. So that's basically what it takes, and it has when the hand is in motion and when it's not in motion. So now we're going to the element 2, which is move. Move is the basic element which is employed when the predominant purpose is to transport an object to a destination. There are 3 classes of moves. Case A is the object to the other hand or against a stop. So for example, I'm traveling, I'm getting an object to the other hand or against a certain fixture, a certain specific step that it needs to go to. Case B, the object to approximately or indefined location. So that object is going to a location which is not specifically determined, so it can change, but it has a certain approximation. And case C, in which the object is going to an exact location, a precise location. The time to move will depend upon the following variables. For example, first of all, the length of the motion, which is governed in a manner similar to reach. Number 2, the condition, nature of the reach, is governed by the above mentioned 3 cases, the ones that we mentioned previously. And 3, the types of moves, which are the same as in the case of reach, the type of move that we're going to make. And obviously the weight factor. And if it's static or dynamic. The weight of the object has a dual effect on the move time. So for example, depending on the size of the object, of the weight, it's gonna increase that moving time. Not only the move is referenced to increase the time, but also the initial hesitation prior to a movement is produced by weights. This also creates time. For example, when we see a big object that we're going to move, there's always hesitation in order to take it and transport it. For move contains a weight factor. To find out the time allowed for move with weight, it is essential to multiply the basic move time with the appropriate weight factor. That's what we're going to check on the table. In addition to this product, an appropriate weight constant is also added if the need arises. So here's the table for movements, and as we can see, there's the distance moved in inches. Also, same as in reach. But in reach, we're just grasping over to an object. Here, we're transporting, we're moving. So those are the three cases that we have there. All time starting TMUs. Those is depending on the type of movement that we're generating. Also, if there's additional inches, you can see it on the section which is below the table, where it says additional. That's the amount of time that's gonna be added depending on the amount of inches. It's gonna be multiplied. And when the hand is in motion, there's also a certain amount that it's added to it. And on the where it says weight allowances, it has weight in pounds. So depending on the object, the amount of pounds is going to be increasing, and the time it takes it also increases. Then we have the factor that is considered, for example, when there's that hesitation move, and that hesitation, it's always referenced with the it's cross-referenced with the amount of weight that it's taken care of. In turn, this is the basic element employed when the hand either is empty or loaded. Its turn. For example, the hand. There's certain situations in which we don't move the hand, and there's certain situations in which we need to turn it in order to position a certain object. So this is basically that type of element. Also, when we have that's the case when we have a part. When we don't have a part, it's basically to grab onto an object. We need to turn the hand in a certain position in order to consider it. So those movements rotates the hand, the wrist, and the forearm about the long axis of the forearm. The amount of length of the turn is measured by the degrees by which the hand, wrist, or the forearm are turned to from their natural position. So those are measured in angles. It goes from 30 degrees up to 180 degrees, and it increments in sections of 15 degrees. The time to turn depends on two variables: the degrees that are being turned and the weight factor. Similar as when we're transporting something. The turn time is dependent upon the weight of the object being turned if hand is not empty. There are three classifications of weight: small, medium, and large, as illustrated on the following table. So here we have, depending on the amount of degrees that are being turned, that TMU is going to be increasing. Also, depending on the weight of the part, small, which is between 0 up to 2 pounds, medium, which is 2.1 up to 10 pounds, and large, 3.1 up to 35 pounds, and the turn, it obviously increases that TMU to turn that part. Then we have applied pressure. Applied pressure is the basic element which is performed when precise control is exerted. So we need to apply a certain amount of pressure with some with some control needed. It appears at a distant pause before performing the subsequent basic element. For example, if you're going to position by pressing something, or if you're going to press a certain button that has resistance, that's applying pressure. It provides a full cycle of time or development by the components as related to the other motions. The tables shown two cases: applied pressure, case A, and case B. In which case A, it means the application of pressure only. This would naturally require less time than B, because on B, the regress or sequence and apply pressure, it needs precision, which is more than normal. Some certain situations, the APA, which is saying on the table, it's when you just press it and that's it. On APB, it requires precision, so he needs to find the position that he's gonna take on that movement and obviously do that application. There's the description of the steps that need to be followed: AF, OM, RLF, and then we have for more APA and plus G2, which are basically the basic movements that are required in order to apply pressure. So for applying less pressure, to applying pressure without precision is less TMUs than when applying pressure with some certain precision. And there we see the basic symbols, which is AF, DM, and RLF, in which we have less TMUs, more TMUs, or minimum TMUs. And the description is basically apply force, the old minimum, and release force. Those are basically the meaning of those symbols, which are the ones that we're seeing on the description. Then we have the grasp. That basic element is performed with the main purpose is to secure sufficient control on one or many objects with fingers or with hands to allow the performance of the next basic element. It starts when preceding basic element has ended and stops when sequending element has started. Hence, mental termings such as search and select are included in the grasp time. For example, that's basically grabbing an object. The format of table for grasp is shown on the following table, in which we see the TMUs and description of the activities. So here we have the type of grasp in which we have a pickup, a regrasp, or a transfer. Also select and contact. Depending on the type of case, it has a certain description. For example, 1A is any object by itself, easily grasped object of a small size lying close against a flat surface. 1B is a grasp bottom and one side of a roughly cylindrical job. 2, for example, for regrasp is change grasp without relinquishing control, and etc. etc. So for all those cases, the amount of TMUs is described on that table, and it gives you the amount of time that it's going to take for all those type of grasp. Then we have position. Position is the basic element in which we employ to align or orient and engages one object with another object, where the motions used are so minor that they don't justify as other basic elements. The time for position is affected by, for example, the class of fit, if it's loose, close, or is it exact. The symmetry, if it's symmetrical or non-symmetrical. Symmetrical, if it can go in any other position and still be correct, that's symmetrical. If it's non-symmetrical, it's that it has to go in a certain position. And semi-symmetrical, it's that it can go in different positions, but not on all cases. And the ease of handling, whether it's easy to handle or difficult to handle. It's illustrated on the table that we're gonna see here. So here we have the class of fit, if it's close or exact, if it requires pressure, if it's light pressure, or if it's heavy pressure. Obviously, heavy pressure is when we have a part that's difficult to handle. And then we have the type of symmetry, if it's easy to handle and difficult to handle, where we can see that the amount of TMUs, it's increasing depending if it's symmetrical or non-symmetrical. Obviously, if it's symmetrical, it's going to take a lot less time in order to position. If it's non-symmetrical, it's going to take a little bit more concentration, so it takes a lot more time. Then we have release. Release is the basic element to relinquish control of an object with the fingers of hand. Basically, it's leaving the object alone. Open up the hand and leaving the object. So there are two types of release: normal and contact release. Normal, in its fingers are just open and lets go of the object, so it doesn't require any tactical location. You just release the object. And contact release, it occurs and is completed when the following reach motion starts. No time is allowed for this case release. So as we can see here that type of release. We have those two cases, and first, the normal release, it's performed by opening the fingers as an independent motion, and then we have the contact release, which is a lot less time than the TMUs that are required for the normal release. Then we have disengage. Disengage is the basic element used to break contact between one object and another. The objects are separated away. Disengage times depend on the class of fit, the ease of handling, the care of handling, and the disengage times are given in the following table. In which we have, for example, the class of fit, we have 3 types. Loose, very slight effort blends with subsequent move. For example, if it's easy to fit there, so it doesn't require a lot of handling. So it's easy to handle, it's a 4. If it's difficult to handle, it's a 5.7. Closed normal effort, slight recoil. It requires a lot more handling in order to fit it into the other part, in order to disengage. So it's easy to handle, 7.5. Difficult to handle, it's a little bit more. Same with tight considerable effort. If you require a little bit more force in order to disengage the object. The eye times. This is very interesting. The eye times, this basically is the work time for moving and focusing the eye, and it's not limiting on factor, and consequently does not affect the time for the operation. There are, however, some cases. In all such cases, these times require considered action. There are 2 types of eye times. The eye travel time, which is ET, and the eye focus time, which is EF. These 2 amount of times, basically, one is when you're focusing. The eye travel is when you're traveling your eyesight in order to see a certain point, and the eye focus is basically when you're searching for something. Eye focus time is the time needed to focus your eyes to an object and look at it long enough to identify certain readily distinguishable characteristics within the area, which may be seen without shifting the eyes. And in the eye travel is affected by the distance between points from and to which the eye travel, and the perpendicular distance from the eye to the line of travel as shown in the following tables. So we can see here, basically, for the eye travel time, it's a formula in which we have 15.2 TMUs times the distance between the points from which the eye is traveling, with the divided between the perpendicular distance between the eye to the line of travel. And in order to focus, that's basically just 7.3 TMUs. And last but certainly not least, we have the body length and the foot motions. These are mainly used for body length and foot movements. These are classified and tabulated under MTMs, and we can see a table here. For example, for the type of motion, we have leg foot motion, we have horizontal motion, which is the side step, turn body, walk, then we have walk, and vertical motion. And it has different descriptions of the type of movement that is being applied, and the symbols that's basically part of that movement specifically. And depending on the distance in which we are moving, the TMU time is going to be increasing. That's basically the explanation. So those are the basic elements used for TMB. They are used, and these basic movements are the basis for MTM studies. So I'm gonna be there this Saturday at 7 a.m. if you have any questions or doubts. Thank you and have a good evening.